council some years ago for 4 years, representing the 4th Ward, and I served a term. Then after a couple of years, a position came open for council at large. So I was appointed for a year because someone moved out of the city. Then I ran an election and won, and was on another 4 years. So December makes 9 years that I've served on city council. It's pretty exciting. We give a lot to the community. We do a lot of hard work. There's a lot of behind the scenes things people don't see. We have to attend a lot of events. It's strictly, if you want to or not, but everybody does. We do a lot of presentations, and it's a collaborative effort. There's 9 of us council members. There's 6 wards in Batavia. Wards are geographical areas, so there's a council member for each ward, and then there's 3 council at large. And basically the way it works is you call your ward council person, you have a problem, situation, complaint, anything, and you don't get any results that you're satisfied with, then you can call a council at large, and he will have to resolve it, which we normally do. So we work with the staff. We have a city manager. So the council members are basically like executives on a board. The manager runs all the day-to-day business. And in Batavia, we operate under what's called a charter. It's the law. Our charter is approved by the state of New York. It's approved by the voters. Those are the boundaries we have to confine ourselves to. We can't leave those boundaries. That is the law of the land as far as our community goes. So in any event, our council meetings, we really hammer things out. We have first, any item of business has to go to a conference meeting. And that's where we discuss it and really get into the details. We usually get into the details ahead of time. There's a lot of phone calls made, things like that. Then we discuss it on the floor of the council meeting. And from there, it gets moved to the floor at the next general business meeting. At the business meeting, it's pretty much hammered out. There may still be lingering questions, and then we vote on it. So a lot of times you'll see things, people say, oh, well, look, they all just voted yes and all that. It was a done deal. Nothing's ever a done deal. I've actually sponsored things before and then voted no on. I sponsored it to get it to the floor and then voted no because I didn't believe in it, or my constituents contacted me, or they were against it, or whatever. So those are basically the way the council works. One of the things that I'm a big believer, and I tell people all the time, when they call and there's a pressing issue, is to come and speak to the council. Come and speak at a council. Anyone can speak at our meetings. There's a time limit, obviously. You can't filibuster. Spend the whole night, but come and speak at the meetings. And that not only informs all of the council what the situation is, the media picks up on it. They print it, they run with it, and it usually gets action. We had a recent one involving the use of a city park, and members came and spoke. In the process, I received quite an education. I talked to many parks commissioners, state park commissioner. I talked to the Western New York State Regional Park Commissioner, found out how the state was handling the issue, and it turned out it wasn't a possible thing that could occur in this particular park. And we said, no, we can't do this. It's not going to happen. And everybody went home happy. It's like any deal. You leave, you're a little happy, a little sad. You lost a little, but you won a little, and that's the way it should be. Like I said, we have a very hardworking council, and we're getting a lot of things done. We're quite pleased. We got through the COVID epidemic, and we came out pretty good financially. Very careful. Most of us are pretty conservative. I spend every tax dollar as if it was coming right out of my pocket, because it is. And I actually reach out. I call a lot of constituents. I get various opinions from throughout the community. So that's where I stand. I believe in community service. If people don't give back to their community probably won't give them a lot. So people need to participate. I've spoken to independent living in the past, and I know some of the concerns you people have. I'm really a big promoter of people's rights, accessibility. Anyone, people should have the right to go anywhere, do what they want to do. I personally have experienced in my family. My dad lost suspicion when he was about 55 years old. And it was from a doctor that was pretty careless. And he ended up becoming, totally lost all his sight. And I saw the struggles he had to go through. It was difficult. And you know, to this day though, I remember he never let my mother use the handicap spot. He says, no, I can walk. He says, there's somebody that can't, that really needs that spot. So I have my own pet peeves. I see somebody using a handicap spot that shouldn't be there. I'm not afraid to tell them. And one of my big pet peeves, I was discussing it the other day with one of the staff here, is people that park over sidewalks. We spend probably $1 million a year in Batavia on sidewalk restoration, sidewalk rebuilding. Sidewalks have become a very expensive proposition. The average price for one sidewalk block in front of a home comes out to about $350. So we do things, and we don't replace individual blocks anymore. We can't afford to. We replace entire sections. Each intersection for handicapped accessibility has to be individually engineered. They have to have a surveyor, they have to swing the angles, they have to do everything. And then we spend all this money, and I go out the street in the morning with my dog, and I look down the street and I see cars parked over the sidewalk. Right, I've seen cars with a foot out into the street overnight. You know, it's just inconsiderate, just totally inconsiderate. So a lot of people walk early in the morning. This just shouldn't happen. People parking in no parking zones, restricting visibility, endangering other people. And you know, my mom spent 2 years in a nursing home, and I got a real dose of what it's like to have your hands tied, not being allowed to do things for yourself. And it's something we should all strive to improve on. So that's some of my thoughts, my feelings, what I represent. I'm only in this for one reason, to represent my friends and neighbors in the community. No other reason at all. Nothing involved in there for me personally, and that's where I'm at. So I'd like to ask people that vote in the city to please vote for me. I'd love to continue representing. So I'll take questions now.
All righty, questions first in the room.
I have a question.
Sure.
Oh,
well,
Bob, do me a favor, will you?
Sure.
Take 2 steps towards the camera. 1, 2. There we go.
How's that? That's
There we go. Now turn to them and take the questions from the audience. I'm sorry, I'm doing all the things for my staging.
No problem.
Erica Kaczynski, I'm on the Council for Independent Living of the Genesee region. One of my subcommittees is GRAC, Genesee Region Accessibility Committee.
Okay.
And I'm hearing that it's very important to you, accessibility.
Yes.
I would have interest in knowing the post office. The post office rebuild, we were definitely appreciating, but I looked at the original setup that was temporary. And I came back to the office, I'm like, no, that's not going to work. I don't know what their plan is, but that doesn't work. So we're working with the post office and the city, and measures are being taken. It is going to be ADA compliant and accessible, and we're very grateful for that. But I'd like to know why wasn't the city right there saying, okay, let's look at ADA. This needs to be accessible for 100% of citizens.
Right from the beginning, the city has no jurisdiction and no standing. It's federal property.
Okay.
It's totally federal property. Now, I was going to kick out of years ago. There was a great book written, and it was called ADA, the Great American Hoax. And it said, I defy anyone to go up one of those new post office ramps in a wheelchair. And when you looked at it, I mean, it was long and steep. And if you got up there and you didn't make it to the top, you were in trouble. And new ramp doesn't look much different to me. I don't know.
Well, it is being changed. The one that was temporary, we are working with that, and it is being changed. It is going to be ADA compliantly
And
accessible.
that's where it's important when an organization like yours steps in, because as in the city, we can't, there's nothing we can do. It's like where the office used to be. That was a state highway, state controlled the park. And I remember you had real parking issues there. We couldn't get a handicap parking spot. State of New York, you send them a letter, you might get an answer back in your lifetime. And we had no jurisdiction. So without standing, the city can't really do anything. And that's why in the past, I know the organization asked the city for help with handicap parking on Main Street. There's something we can do, it's straight back to the state.
So you're persistent for your constituents, you don't fall back and take no for an answer. You persist with what you see is necessary.
Oh, absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely. You know, sort of like that pink rabbit, you can't draw. I'll be back.
All right, Scott, you had a question?
Yes, thanks for your hard work. So I am visually impaired, so I use the sidewalks all the time.
Sure.
Live on North Lion Street.
Okay.
Sidewalks are bad, and they've been bad for 10, 12 years, the whole time I've lived there. Is there any plan, like, is there a plan to fix the streets of sidewalks?
Well, we have plans every year. We replace a certain number of feet of sidewalk. And it's up to our Department of Public Works had to pick the worst. We replaced some sidewalks to some of the various streets, and one of the problems, of course, is trees. Tree roots just pitch the sidewalk. And of course, as you've probably seen if you walk a lot of the sidewalks are patched with blacktop. It's a temporary repair, which lasts for years sometimes. Right now, to remove a full-grown tree in the city of Batavia costs us about $3,700 for one tree. And it's all under a budget. And of course, people want brand new sidewalks because they need a place to park the cars. So you end up in the street anyway. But, I don't know what the schedule is for next year. I mean, we'll be working on the budget and we'll go from there. But I know the other day, I live on Union Street. Our sidewalks were replaced because we tied it in with the water line replacement. When they put the water line in, we got a lot of new sidewalks. Part of that grant and all that.
Well, I think we need water line replacement too.
Yeah, but one of the things is, and I can only encourage you, to call City Hall, voice your opinion, let them know you walk, the sidewalks are horrendous. Please put it on the schedule.
Okay.
What, is there a particular section in North Line?
There's a lot of bad sidewalks. Some are raised the one sidewalk is raised 6 inches at a pitch.
Yeah, I was out walking on Wood Road the other day, and the sidewalk was very similar. The blocks were all pitched in every direction.
Some sidewalks are missing completely.
Yeah. And then there's other areas. I just had someone approach me about on the east side of town. They have no sidewalks. And the person has serious concerns because their grandchildren have to walk in the street. And they're concerned about traffic, safety. And I know in some of the neighborhoods, if the neighbors all pitch in and don't want a sidewalk, the city's well, fine. I don't know that that's a standing rule. I think if enough people pitch in and say, we need some sidewalks for our children, that would be the final decision.
The first step is to call City Hall.
Yeah, definitely notify. People don't notify City Hall. There's a rule. It's been a court many times. It's the government. The size of government does not necessarily match geographical areas as far as awareness. So it's up to the citizens to notify their government when there is a problem. That's why there's a legal document. It's called the notice of defect. Let's say you have a big pothole out front of your house, and every time a car goes through, you hear it banging away, and say, somebody's going to get killed out there. Well, how's government supposed to know? They don't send a guy out every night patrolling the streets with a flashlight and magnifying glass. It's up to the citizenry to notify the government. If you were to send a letter right at the top, you write notice of defect. On North Lion Street's a major pothole. Somebody's going to damage their car or fall into it, suffer an injury. Then the municipality has a time frame. They have to undertake temporary repairs, restriction, or something. And if they don't, then they can be held liable. And we've had accidents in the city and the county where those defects were filed, and the plaintiff actually won. They went to court. And the judge said, you know, the notice of defect was filed. It's 2 months now. You have 30 days to do something. Nothing was done. Sorry. So, you know, it's in a last resort. It's a good way to go. And there's not retaliation. People don't have to fear that. Government does need to be made aware of this to be kept up or repaired or safe.
Thank you.
Sure.
And Amy had a question?
Yeah, so I am a city of Batavia resident, I'm a homeowner, and I've been noticing, like waste disposal. If trash is not getting picked up, not by a trash company, like by the individual other homeowner, and complaints have been filed, what would be our next step?
So you have someone, they're putting trash out?
They're not putting trash out,
You're not putting
they're
trash.
like compensating. And it's already been reported.
You mean
to
they're
the city
putting
of
it like in your backyard?
Correct, yeah, correct.
Okay.
It's already been reported to the city several times.
Oh, boy.
So what is the next step?
Well, it depends. There's several avenues. Number one, stay on the city, put it in writing, actually.
Okay,
2, if it's garbage, call the county health department.
okay, coming up.
Yes, I had a neighbor years ago. Our yards on east side of Union Street are pretty small. And I had a neighbor in one of the rear yards who had several large dogs. And I'm a dog walker. I have to pick up every day. They weren't picking up dirty. And I remember that summer, the flies were horrendous. We couldn't even sit out in our backyard. And I turned it over to the county health department. And in my opinion, it was a health issue. And they agreed, and boy, they dropped the boom. That's it.
All right, thank you.
I do want to make sure right before his window ends that anybody who has a question on Zoom has an opportunity to ask him. So if anybody on Zoom has a question to ask Bob, you want to raise your hand or let me know, please.
Zoom it in.
I see no hands, but if you'd be so kind as to answer a question of mine.
Sure.
One of the things that independent living is promoting in 2021 is looking at increasing options for people with disabilities to be employed. Can you tell me, Bob, what you might be able to do as a city council member to increase the number of people with disabilities working in Batavia city government?
Well, I mean, the city government's an equal opportunity employer. They don't discriminate. They better not be discriminating. I'm sure they don't. And we do have people with disabilities. So without naming individuals or their disabilities,
Wouldn't ask you to do that. Wouldn't ask you to do that at all.
we do have people with disabilities. Basic thing is go down, fill out an application. Depends on the type of job. I mean, there's a lot of the jobs are civil service. And
would you happen to know the number of 55A, B, or C designated positions that are posted in the city of Batavia?
no, I wouldn't.
Okay. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay. 55A, B, and C are the categories where people would be exempted from the civil service exam if they are otherwise qualified to apply.
Okay.
Okay. You have to designate positions with that. You have to give that designation to a job before somebody disabled can apply. And what we're finding is as people with disabilities are moving out of government jobs, they're not maintaining the designations. It used to be that local governments were the second biggest employer of people with disabilities. Turns out not to be the case anymore. Hence, one of the reasons why we asked the question. I want to thank you for taking the time to answer that and to be with us today. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. It's always great to be here anyway. So
I'm gonna, Scott, my MC on site, Ron is apparently ready.
He is, yes.
thanks, Scott.
All right, thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
So we're gonna move right to Ron Pangrazio.
Thank you. Thank you.
Move the marker.
And you could talk to the camera.
And every once in a while, because this is being recorded for rebroadcast, help a guy out and turn to the camera. Don't have to do it all the time, but if they know that you know there's a camera there, it'll help us out. But the next 15 minutes is yours.
Okay, good morning. It's great to be here. I want to thank Bonnie for the email, which brought this to my attention. Probably the biggest reason was to help educate me more, okay, on independent living and lifetime assistance on all of the situations that may occur. Okay, a little bit about myself. My name is Ron Pangrazio. I am a lifetime resident of the village of Leroy, town of Leroy. I did my undergraduate work at Brockport. I taught high school math at Gates Chili for 33 years. And 5 years after that, I served as the executive director of the Genesee Valley School Boards Association, which represents 22 of the school districts here in Genesee, Livingston, and Wyoming counties. So I have been always involved with something in my community. One of the things, as I was on the School Boards Association, I also spent 15 years as a school board member in the Leroy Central School District. 8 of those years I served as board president. So I have been involved. This is my first year. I'm just finishing up my first year on the town board. I had to run to fill an expired term. I have found it very rewarding, very educational. There's a lot of things with the town board that I was not familiar with in regards to, I spent 4 years, okay, as a village board member as well back in the 70s and 80s. And just the construction of the budget and everything else. Anything as far as the runnings of the community, I'm totally prepared with that. I am running because I am concerned about the community. As I said, I've lived there all of my life. I feel that I have the common sense approach. I have the time. I am able to get out into the community and meet people and talk with people. And I think that they are find it very easy to come back and talk, okay, with me. As I mentioned, when I got the email and having the opportunity to speak, sometimes, and I guess I'll plead the ignorance rule here, that we don't know everything. And I right away, I went and looked up some things as far as Leroy's use, okay, with independent living and lifetime assistance. And it brought to my mind that, yes, we do have a home in Leroy, okay, for lifetime assistance. And I'll bet that there's probably 80-90% of the people in Leroy that aren't really aware, okay, that facility is there, that it is taking care of those people, okay, that have those needs. We have some other locations in the community too that provide living spaces for them. And as I was thinking about just that part of it, it was just last week that we decided to put in a spray park at a recreation service. And one of the things about the spray park was that it was going to be totally handicapped accessible, where wheelchairs, okay, could be wheeled into the spray park and taking care of some of those services. One of the things we've never done, and probably because we haven't been asked to do it, we do have a community pool. It's only used during the summer months. Maybe that's why we don't get as if it were an indoor pool, but it is not handicapped accessible. We don't have the wheelchair access to it. And we certainly don't have the 0-degree entry, okay, where somebody could walk into it that's possibly handicapped. But I have been involved with people. I've been involved. I don't want to use the term politics because I don't consider it politics. I read an article in the paper this morning where all of the board members were of one party affiliation, and that's not diversity. And it's like, well, you might have a party affiliation, but once you go in and sit at the table, you're there for everybody. And if you're not, you probably shouldn't be there. So again, I say I live in Leroy. It's the town board in Leroy. I don't know how far out your group goes with the Zoom conference today, but again, it's I consider it a great chance to be here. The advocacy part of this, I mean, just being able to get the message out to people that there are a large group of our society that have needs that some of us that we're not really aware of. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to.
First questions go to the room, so please turn to your audience for those.
Go ahead, Erica.
Yes, Mr. Pangrazio, is that?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you for being here, and I am really excited about this splash park, very excited, and maybe there's a possibility that some play equipment can be added.
I'm sorry, someone.
Some play equipment.
Oh, yes,
That
yes.
is fully accessible. There's a newly accessible playground I saw. I believe it's in Rochester. I'm not positive, but it is a beautiful playground and possibly that could be added as long as it's a new project.
Right, well, we're working right now with, excuse me, the Village of Leroy, as well as the Rotary Club of Leroy, and trying to get some of these facilities. And I know adding in any kind of the recreational stuff that they can, hands-on, do something with, okay, which is different than going over and playing softball or pickleball or something else like that. But there's a definite need, okay, for these people to be able to get there and enjoy themselves.
I do have one other concern. Addiction is a disability and it's almost a silent disability in many communities. One thing that always concerns me every time I see it come up is the Wine Walk business tour in the Village of Leroy. I just wonder if that's in good taste. I understand that.
Do you think there's a wine walk that still takes place in Leroy?
I haven't seen one since the pandemic.
I don't think
There was one prior to the pandemic. They have not.
Okay, as I said, I get out in the community a lot. I'm not familiar at all with the wine walk. Of course, it's something to do probably with the business council, promoting things like that. Even with their Winterfest or something, which might involve hot chocolate or something else too.
Yeah.
But some businesses, whether it would involve some sort of alcohol or what. It's there. It's not bad, but it has to be controlled. Okay.
I would like it to see. I would like it to be a safer, like hot chocolate, things like that, cheese, stuff like that.
Well, they'll have the choice for that if there is one. I'll be very honest with you. I have not seen anything in the last 4 or 5 years that would deal with the wine walk.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else?
Questions from the audience? So now we're going to turn to questions from Zoom, and I have a couple to start because you admitted that one of the primary purposes of you coming today is education. So we're going to start with some really simple things. Can you tell me how many people work for the town of Bergen?
Work for the
town of Bergen.
town of Leroy?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Right idea, wrong line. The town of Leroy. How many people work for the town of Leroy?
That's okay. Between the people that are in the office, between all of the departments that are there, as well as the highway department, we're probably talking close to 20.
Okay, 20 people. And to the best of your knowledge and belief, has anybody in the town council talked about a transition plan on the property that the town owns and operates?
A transition plan meaning to make it handicap accessible, or is that
Correct.
Our building is totally handicapped accessible now. Okay, we're located right on Main Street in Leroy. We are, and we're all on a single level, so we don't have any stairs or anything else that anybody has to go up. We were very.
Go ahead.
we were very involved with the rebuilding, okay, of Wolcott Street in Leroy, which happens to go by the elementary school as well as the Woodward Memorial Library. And for years, it was always very difficult to get from a parking place in front of the library to enter the library, which had a ramp. It wasn't very nice. And now they have landscaped it so that the in front of the library is right at curb level, so that they do not have a difficult effort to get a wheelchair to the library. So I think everybody is trying to take care of those things. And again, it has to get brought to their attention, okay, that there is a problem.
Well, and the reason why we ask these questions is because from an education standpoint, right?
Yes.
Transition plans are possible for governments that employ more than 50 people. Leroy doesn't. However, there are things that Leroy is still supposed to do in terms of making sure its services are accessible to its residents, right?
Yes.
So you answered my first question for me. That's great. The second question is, can you tell me who your ADA coordinator is?
No, I cannot.
So you could commit to us as a member of the council that we're going to find out who that person is and make sure that your local community knows who that is?
I think you can be assured of that. As I said when I started, I talked to Bonnie when she invited me here, and the advocacy part, the educational part of making the community aware, making Ron Pangrazio aware, okay, more about what independent living, okay, is all about. So I assure you that the person in charge of ADA, I'll know their name.
Wonderful. At least I'm almost done on my questions. I do want to offer anybody else here on Zoom an opportunity to ask a question. Please raise your hand or put something in the chat for me so I can find it. I'll give them another moment. And as they do that, you mentioned the fact that you have a pool that isn't accessible, right?
Handicapped accessible?
Right.
Yes, we do.
But you could commit to investigating ways that we could fix that problem, right?
I think that it definitely should get looked into. The pool, it's an older pool, but there's always constant work being done on it. And even just with the purchase of the handicap chair that would swing over the side of it, that is something that can definitely get looked into.
Right, exactly. Okay, those are all my questions. I don't have anything else from Zoom. Nobody's raised their hand that I know of. So I want to thank you for taking the time to come in and see us today. This will be rebroadcast for Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, right? As made available on our social media. So people are going to be able to see this right up until Election Day.
That's
okay?
Good.
So thank you.
And I've learned a lot from being here.
Thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
To my MC in the room, Scott, is our next participant available?
Yes. Yep, we'll have him come in momentarily. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Yep. Grab my jacket. Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you.
And once you get over, there's a,
Oh my God, it's like a maze.
yeah, you're gonna go through here, and then we got like a little blue, and you can take the mask off while you're
Thank you.
speaking.
All right, yeah, so the mark there, and you can look into the camera.
All right.
So you're on your mark. So what we'd like you to do is do the statement to the camera. Then we're going to do questions first to the audience. You can turn to them and then back to Zoom for any other questions. And then you're going to be done. Your 15 minutes starts now.
Hello, my name is Eugene Jankowski Jr. I'm presently on City Council. I'm the City Council President. I've been here before talking to individuals at Independent Living during my past campaigns. It gave me an eye-opening experience about the voting machines, about disabilities, people with special needs, things like that. So I've tried to incorporate that into my voting as a council member. What I've done is a couple of things that I come to mind. We did a resolution several years ago resolving that the city would look into universal access for all future constructions and/or projects. Some of that's coming to fruition now with the recovery funds. We're going to upgrade Austin Park to have more universally accessible fun things for kids and people with disabilities to be able to use. Also, we partnered with the YMCA this year or last year during COVID when that came back open. So we were able to gather again. Our youth center now has a partnership with the Y, and they provide additional services that we could never provide. The pool, the facilities, and they also use Liberty Center for Youth as their main place to help kids with learning disabilities and things like that. So I think it's really important, and I'm glad to be here to hear your input so that I can continue on in that realm to keep furthering that progress so that we can learn and educate others to pay more attention to the other people's needs and other people's maybe abilities or disabilities where they can all get the same treatment and partake in city's functions and get access to all that the city offers. So I'll take any questions or.
First set of questions come from in the room, so you can turn to them. Scott will moderate for a few moments.
Okay,
Good
Erica?
morning.
Morning.
Eugene, if that's
Correct.
correct. Erica Kaczynski, independent living of the Genesee Region Council.
Right.
Talking about activities, getting back to life post-COVID. The bid district has been doing awesome, or was doing awesome prior to COVID and is getting back. One concern that I have, and I have this concern in different places as well, addiction is a very real issue and it increased during COVID dramatically.
Right.
It is a disability.
Right.
And there are several treatment facilities right near the bid district. It would be nice if there weren't the wine and beer walks. As it would be nice if they could be hot chocolate and tea walks to visit businesses.
It's a great
I
idea.
would really like to see that because with so many treatment facilities in place, those people want to get out and enjoy their community,
Right.
but when
They don't
they're in
want to be
treatment,
tempted by alcohol
Yeah.
or various things, right?
many of them are in current treatment or currently discharged, and they should be able to go and really enjoy their community too without having that risk and anxiety.
Right. And I agree with that. Unfortunately, the bid has their own board of directors. And
Okay.
they're a separate entity supported by city council, but we really, and we have one voting member on that staff.
Mhm.
So they pretty much dictate what they want to do, and I would think it's driven by money and capitalism, so to speak, so that they're going to look at how can we best use our facilities to bring in the most people into our businesses so we get the most traffic, so they might buy goods from our store, right? So I would suggest make that suggestion, and next time I run into Beth Kemp, I run into her occasionally at dedications and things like that. I will gladly bring that up to her and say, why not do something non-alcoholic, non-drug related or whatever, to maybe bring people out, maybe with children, and they don't want to drink. And there might be a lot of different people that would enjoy an event like that, not just people who have addictions. So that's probably a good idea, and maybe they haven't thought of it. Maybe they can do a really good festival or some type of thing that they can involve that. So I think it's a great idea.
We have a 3-year-old granddaughter and adults do not drink rum.
No,
So,
I'm
I mean, that would
I'm
be
not
great.
really a drinker myself, so
Yeah.
I haven't attended the wine walk or the beer thing in a while just because I have conflicts, but I like to go to socialize and to meet my friends or whatnot. But my wife and I we're not really into the wine part of it. I mean, we like it occasional, but not to go there for the whole day and drink all these wines. I mean, I got to drive home. I don't really like. I have to set a better example. I hold myself to a higher standard, being a former law enforcement, retired. I believe my conduct in public should reflect my belief and not be out drinking and driving and trying to get away with stuff. I don't think that's the right way to go.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad that's important to you. And if you would pass that on.
I will.
it would be
I'll certainly do
wonderful.
that. I can do that. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll take it.
All right, Scott has a question.
Scott with ILGR, live in Batavia. What is your input on cleaning up the city of Batavia in reference to the slum wars? the rental properties that are, I live on a beautiful street.
What street do you live on?
North Line.
Okay,
And
great.
I have one house right across the street.
Well, and it's funny you say that because in anticipation of my next term, or in one way or another, I still have a couple months left. So one of my goals was to start paying more attention to like Ellicott Street, since we've seen City View Apartments rejuvenate the old Save-A-Lot building there. And now Severino property is scheduled to go off in November. It's been a long delay, a lot of federal and state bureaucratic nightmare trying to clean up that mess over there because it's a brownfield. It's got contaminants in the soil and such, diesel fuel. So that has started the domino effect, and that was pushed by economic development people. Convinced me that we can get some of these cleaned up. The neighbors will want to clean up, and it'll go right down the line. So along that line, I've talked to several people on Ellicott Street, and there is one business, the old Dewey Counter TV place, all boarded up, surrounded by beautiful businesses. So it's similar to what your neighborhood you're talking about, right? So we've also, and I talked to the city manager just the other week about this. Now that COVID distracted us so long, we're able to get back on track. One of the things was neighborhoods, starting to form neighborhood groups. We had a situation on Centennial Park where they wanted to put in a disc golf. So the neighbors got out together, they didn't like that idea, so they expressed that and they gathered. And I said, well, we're not really gonna put it there anyway, but you've gathered, keep this group together, maybe there's other improvements we can make. Like Medfield Parkway group, they just put a bunch of signs honoring their veterans, they put flags up, they put trees up in Christmas time. So I think I'd like to see more neighborhood involvement. In my own neighborhood, we had a disruptive house, and the neighbors contacted me about it because it was at the other end of the street. I didn't see it. They got together, they stayed persistent in a group. In groups, sometimes there's safety there, right? And they formed a neighborhood group, and they went by the law, and they reported code violations, and they reported violations they saw. 2 arrests were made, and I got a call from the neighbor there the other day, and he thanked me, and he said it's calmed down dramatically. So we want to apply some of that knowledge towards other streets, not just my street, but other streets. And I said that, keep track of what we're doing, because these houses pop up on occasion where people don't clean them, they don't repair, garbage all around, loud music, drug activity, whatever. We want to start having a lesson plan or some kind of a plan. So when that happens, we know what works and we can attack all these individual problems and then get them cleaned up and resolved. So it's on the list of things to do, but COVID kind of directed us all towards survival and trying to get our budget. And then now we're into a new budget year starting in January. We'll be looking at the new budget for 21-22. And we don't even know where our funds are because everything was so disrupted. Everything came back around. So it's on the list.
Yeah, we have a small group together. Mr. Randall knows all of us by name already.
Right.
Another police department says there's nothing that can be done about it.
Well, and we've addressed that too, because that's what my neighbors got. And I was disappointed with that because when I was on the police department, I never said there's nothing I could do. I said, let me look into it and see what I can do. So I told Rachel, from my experience, I was a police lieutenant and acting chief for a period of time. I said, that's unacceptable. You don't tell a person who wants your help, sorry, nothing I can do, and then drive away and they stand there frustrated. That's ridiculous.
I completely agree with you. My brother just retired from the Save Batavia and he feels the same.
Who's your brother?
Todd Cross.
Oh, Todd. Yeah, I worked with him forever. Yeah, I know Todd. Great guy. He was our deputy chief for a while. And it's too bad he couldn't stay around because we were actually hoping someday he'd become the chief. But yeah, it's exactly what we had this conversation, and Rachel, our city manager, agreed with me. She said, it's you don't leave somebody hanging and say nothing I can do when you're the police and they called you for help. You say, let me look into it and see what I can do. And Deputy Chief Camp took that attitude that I suggested, came back about a couple weeks later and looked at the case, looked at all the video from all the neighbors and the police being there. They were totally disrespected. They were called names. The police were in there lighting off explosives at the police car when the police weren't looking. It was totally ridiculous. And arrests were made. So there is something we can do, not necessarily at the moment, but we should look into it. We'll get back to you and we'll research it and we'll see if we can find code or police or social services or whatever we can do to correct the problem. Not to hurt people, but we want to just bring them to a better conduct of behavior. Thank you. Right? Anyone else? Any other questions or concerns?
All right, so now we turn to our folks on Zoom.
Okay,
Anybody who wants to ask a question on Zoom, please be so kind as to raise your hand. Remember, that's the reaction function in Zoom, or you can put something in the chat and I'm happy to either unmute your microphone or ask it for you. While I give them an opportunity to prepare the questions and raise their hands, you are president of the council
correct.
currently, yes? And so could you tell us, for example, one of our big priorities is to try and get more people with disabilities employed, right, including in local governments. Do you know how many 55A positions are designated for city employees?
I'm not sure what do you mean by 55?
55A are those designations that would exempt a qualified person with a disability from needing to take a civil service test to take a job with local government.
Well, unfortunately, I have no control over the civil service test. So, and we've had a beef with that because it's difficult for us to find qualified officers because the civil service test restricts us to certain parts of the list. And maybe they have criminal backgrounds or things like that that wouldn't make them good officers. And we can't bypass that unless they sign off. And usually they won't sign off because they're
and I completely understand that problem, but you recognize I'm talking about all city employees and not just police.
right.
Because when you're talking about people with disabilities, they might be restricted from being police officers by virtue of their impairment.
Right.
Right. So my issue is to make sure that we know how many slots would be available for a person with a disability to take in city government in those positions where they wouldn't be excluded. Completely understand if you don't know the answer. It's one of the reasons why we asked the question.
Well, I know part of that because we talked about that recently with a recent hiring, and they were talking about political affiliation. Okay, and we were commenting on it's nice in the city they don't consider that. We were reading an article about some city that they were getting a big tizzy about Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever. And in the city we don't ask those questions. If the person's qualified, they're qualified. It doesn't really matter as far as their disability or their ability. I remember one of my good friends, his mom was confined to a wheelchair and she worked at the city and they made arrangements for her and she was confined in the wheelchair when she got hired. So it wasn't something that happened and they accommodated. So in talking to the city manager, I know she's really open to the idea. If a person's qualified, they're not concerned about their disabilities or their abilities. They're concerned about their abilities over their disabilities. And for example, our city manager prior to this one we have now had a visual impairment, and council didn't even consider that. We looked at his qualifications. He was able to do the job. He got the job. Okay, and we made arrangements for his vision disabilities was not a problem. Okay, so as a council member, I have no concern over disabilities. I just want the person to be able to do the job, and we'll accommodate. And I'm pretty sure I can speak. That's the way the city manager feels as well. I'm not sure if we have dedicated positions. That I don't know. I know it's based on the job and the individual, and if it's a physical job like a laborer at DPW, obviously you got to be able to physically do that job. But if it's like a driver or something where they can, maybe they have a back injury and they can't stand for long periods of time, I know we've accommodated people in the past. So qualifications are number one, and ability to do the job. And after that, we're pretty flexible on that.
All righty. I want to thank you for taking the opportunity to answer that question. I see no hands in Zoom while we've been talking. So I believe that concludes your time with us. I want to thank you for taking the opportunity to come out and talk with us. It's always great to hear from the president of the council.
Yeah, and again, I'm only the president because council elects me to be that president, and it basically is more symbolic. I sign all the paperwork, I manage the meetings, but I have no control over other council members. So I'm just another vote on council as a at-large council member. Just to make everybody assumes I'm kind of like, in charge of something. I do have direction, but no more than any other council member would. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
No, absolutely. And thank you so much for
Todd,
coming.
this is Ray. Todd?
Yeah,
I have one question. I think we have another minute.
okay.
This is a question regarding low-income housing. So the programs that Independent Living runs pay for people to stay in motels, people who are experiencing homelessness. They have disabilities. And we keep hearing that people don't want low-income housing in their neighborhoods. So what's your position about creating more low-income housing in order to help people get housed and out of these shelter type of situations?
Well, they're building a low-income housing, I believe, right next to Miss Batavia. So that is going to be open up soon. There's going to be many rooms or many apartments in there. Across the street from there is DePaul, and they handle a lot of people with disabilities, I'm sure. And there was one time out by the on East Main Street, they wanted a rezoning issue. That didn't go over very well because the location was really not right for what they were trying to do. So that had some outcry, but I have no problem with it. And as far as the Severino properties on where the old Alpena property is across from next to the across from the new City View apartment save lot and whatnot, that's going to be more middle income housing, but that's also for people to get out of their parents' house, their first jobs or whatever, or they have some type of income coming in. But it's definitely for middle class or low income. It's not subsidized housing. I think most people in the city get upset with subsidized housing versus low income housing. And I don't know what the distinction is there or why they feel that way. I just think some of the feedback I received was that if you pay for something, you appreciate it more and you take care of it. Where historically, if something's giving for free, and I've seen it where, it's middle of a blizzard and I get sent to a call as a police officer and I knock on the door and the cigarette smoke hits me in the face and the 80 degrees in there. And I'm like, why is it so hot in here? And they say, oh yeah, it's free. So we just crank it up, and they're wearing a t-shirt and shorts. And I'm like freezing, and my home is like 65 degrees because I'm not there trying to conserve energy so that I'm not wasting it. That's kind of upsetting, I mean, I don't know, so I guess like my dad said, turn that light off. You're not paying for it. I am. And I didn't understand that. Now that I'm paying for it, I appreciate it and I turn it off and I don't waste energy and I don't waste electricity. So maybe that's some of it, but we're always looking at new ideas. We're always looking. I definitely agree we need more housing in the city of Batavia. There's a housing crunch for all types of people that want different houses or apartments or whatever. So we're open to it. It's just got to be a good project. It's got to fit in the location. And then up to the public, I can't control what the public thinks. That's an outreach maybe others can do to convince the public that it's not a bad idea. Just a thought.
All righty. I want to thank you for answering that question. Ray, do you have anything else?
No, thank you very much. All set.
All righty.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Scott, as I understand it, our next candidate is not with us yet.
She is. She's arrived.
Okay. We are going to need to take a break for a moment as the interpreters are switching at the noon hour.
Okay.
So we're just going to take a break for 2 minutes while we figure out where the new interpreter is. Please and thank you.
I walk in and
All righty.
Okay.
Mike, Joan Blum is the next interpreter, so if you want to put her in spotlight. Alrighty. All right, so I can see both the candidate and the interpreter. This is very important. Next up on our list is Erica O'Donnell, brand new for Batavia City Council. We just asked you make your statement to the camera, then we're going to take questions from the room, and then we'll take questions from Zoom, and that'll do nicely. Your 15 minutes starts now.
Okay, like you said, my name is Erica O'Donnell. I'm running for City Council at large. I live on the south side of Batavia on Pearl Street, right near Oliver's. I moved there in 2011 with my husband Patrick. Since then, we've added to our family with one dog from the Genesee County Animal Shelter, a daughter Lila, she's 7, and a son Connor, who's 5. Both kids go to the City of Batavia School District. As far as myself, I have been involved in local politics since I was old enough to vote. And before that, for that matter, my grandfather in the town of Alabama where I grew up was a town councilman for many years, ran at one point for county legislature, and I was his youngest and one of his only volunteers for a small race like that. And started stuffing envelopes, making phone calls, and from there he got me involved in the Genesee County Democratic Committee, where I'm now the chair of the City of Batavia Democrats. Been involved with races, like I said, from the smallest races, town council, all the way up to making phone calls for Senate and congressional candidates. So that's a little bit about me. As far as my vision for the City of Batavia, I think I bring a fresh perspective to council. I've, in my time in Batavia, have been told many times that we do things this way because it's the way it's always been done. It's the way it's always been. I'm not someone who backs down from a challenge. Hard things are hard, but they're achievable, and we can make changes and do the hard things. Some of my pet projects in the city involve things like parking. There is, to me, no reason in the city that we can't park overnight on streets in the good weather. Most municipalities have those laws. I think there's no reason to not. If you don't have to plow. People are working on construction projects or having events, and I think there's no reason really to not let those vehicles be there. And then as far as downtown parking goes in lots, we've had great success bringing new businesses downtown, especially restaurants. And if I were to go to one of our great local restaurants and have a couple of drinks, make the responsible decision, call an Uber, call a cab, have a friend take me home and leave my vehicle in a city lot overnight, I'm going to be rewarded for making the right decision of not driving home with a $25 ticket the next morning. But I understand that sometimes you have to be a little creative and compromise with things like that. Obviously you have to plow. Well, there's no reason that they can't get the plowing done on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and then over the weekend when the restaurants and bars are busy, let people park. It shouldn't be a big deal. Yeah, I guess that's a little bit about me. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'm Scott Crossett. So you have a dog, so you must be a dog lover.
I am.
Is there any interest in a dog park in the city of Batavia? There's so many, you see dogs on every single street.
Oh, absolutely.
Dogs, and there's no dog park in Batavia.
That's something I would love to see in one of our parks, is an area where dogs can be off leash in some area. We live near Williams Park, take our dog there often. But of course, he's gonna be on a leash the whole time, which is fine. He's, you know, he's getting a little older anyway. I'm not sure how much running around he would do. But certainly in his younger days, he would have loved a more open area. We're lucky to have a nice backyard. We have a beautiful backyard in the city, but not everybody has that, especially our apartment dwellers. Now we're getting more apartments downtown. A lot of them are above businesses and they don't have that outdoor space. So I think it's really beneficial for pet owners. As far as parks go, I'd also, and this is something that Rosemary Christian has been talking about on the south side for years, is putting a spray park on the south side. When I was little, my dad played men's softball at Kitty Park, and there was a fountain there at a time, a wading pool. And that was taken out a long time ago. And I know there's safety issues and concerns for the wading pools now, but that splash park in Austin Park, man, all summer, that thing's packed. It'd be great to have something on the south side for kids. I think Kitty Park, Williams Park, there's lots of space there. I think something could be done over there as well.
Good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hi, Erica Kaczynski, independent living council member. I see here a lot about first responders, parking for drinking, for open drinking, which I appreciate that, but what is your position on adding some mental health resources to the police department?
I would love to see that. I have said, and don't shy away from the fact I'm a Democrat. I'm in the minority in the city, I'm in the minority in Genesee County, and people love to scream about Democrats want to defund the police. It's not been my experience with Democrats, and I know that we want to defund the police, but I think we need to let the police do their police work. And we need to give more funding to mental health in Genesee County, give more resources to people who can de-escalate situations before it becomes a police situation.
When there is an emergency, I work with psychiatric facilities, and when I was younger, it was very hard. And my parents had to call the police on me. Honestly, I was difficult to manage, but the police came. There was no intervention of any sort.
Sure.
The police came.
So I actually can relate to that. My husband's aunt is blind, and she grew up in the town of Oakfield. And there was a situation at one point, she was a teenager and got a hold of a gun. Rural Oakfield, Genesee County, her parents did the same thing, they called the police. The police came, luckily no one was hurt, but the police officer got there and said, I'm so sorry, we didn't know she was blind, we didn't know she was disabled, we took her down hard. The police weren't prepared for that situation. The police weren't trained for that situation. And was it a dangerous situation? Should the police have come? Yes. But they should have had support from someone who understood what she was going through and understood how to better help her in that situation. Thankfully, everything turned out fine. No one was hurt, but it could have gone bad. And I think that's a situation for a lot of people who struggle with mental health things, especially in rural areas. There are so few resources.
So do you think that there's a way to, when that 911 call is made, have a police officer that can make a mental health assessment, rather than being a police officer that has to be aggressive towards a person with a mental health disability, somebody who can make an assessment and reach out to a mental health professional?
Absolutely. There should be training for the officers. If there's not already, I'm not terribly familiar with the policies are, the police department. But if there's not training for that, there absolutely should be. And there should be, and sadly, as with most things, it comes down to money. They need the funding for that kind of thing. And that's something they should absolutely be provided with.
And that'll be a pillar for you?
Absolutely. That's absolutely something I believe in.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
Not,
Any in the Zoom or?
no, I was like, are we done with the questions in the room? Because then we'll go to Zoom, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so now I'm going to ask our folks in Zoom to raise their hand if they want to ask me a question or add it to the chat. I am going to go to Ray first because I know she might have a question that she wants to provide from the word go. Ray, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Independent living has a number of people who are homeless that we're helping, and they are put in the local motels as shelter. And as we try to help developers come into the area, we often hear people don't want low income housing in their neighborhood. What do you think? What's your position about that?
Actually, I was just asked this question yesterday by someone who was wondering how I felt about housing in the city. We definitely need low income housing in the city, affordable housing in the city. I live not right in my neighborhood, but not far from Birchwood Village and from South Main Apartments, which are on a slider, subsidized. And those are the best neighbors in our neighborhood. They run a tight ship. We have no problems from them. The problems that we have are from out of town landlords who don't, keep on top of their properties. We own our home on Grove Street. The two houses opposite us, both of them are single family rentals. The one is almost the identical floor plan to ours. The other is very similar with a smaller yard, and their rent is double or more my mortgage. And that's crazy to me that we can afford to live in our house just because we're privileged enough to be able to get a mortgage. I might not be able to afford to live in a house like mine if it were a rental property. So yes, I absolutely believe we need more affordable housing in the city.
Thank
And
you.
not only that, I think we need more emergency housing in the city. A couple winters ago, I remember one of the churches had opened up for emergency warming centers, and when it dipped below a certain temperature, they had housing, temporary overnight housing for people. We need something like that, whether it's working with, a combination of the city, working with a not-for-profit, or working with, a church or the YWCA, whatever, something. We need something for emergency housing for people. I know you guys work with the motels to do that. That's not enough. And those motels tend to be further out in the city, where if we had it downtown or closer to a more walkable area, I think it would be easier for people to navigate the city. If you're way out on Route 5, that's a long way to walk. If they have to go to an appointment here, for instance, or a doctor's appointment, or get to the pediatrician's office out on North Street, that's a long way to get somewhere.
Just for your own information, the First Baptist Church is going to be having a warming shelter. It's going to be overnight from November 15th till March 15th.
I hadn't heard that. That's great.
To 15 degrees or below. And people will be able to go there. They're calling it the Cold Night Cafe, and people can spend the evening there.
Yeah, that's fantastic and very much needed.
If I could add to the lower income housing,
Yeah.
please. The old Delphi building has been kind of hanging out there dilapidating for many, many years.
Yeah.
Why is that not a possibility of a site for lower income housing? Along with slopes, I realize there's a daycare.
Sure.
But
I don't see why it wouldn't be. That building's going through, that property, I should say, is going through a lot right now with the person who purchased it, getting their funding and getting things all in order. And just City Council, I believe last week, they were actually discussing that to have what type of housing they were going to have in there. Once they do get in there, I do hope it's affordable. I know the housing market right now is just crazy. I can't imagine what my house would cost right now on the market, but if I were to sell it, I probably couldn't afford one. Market rate for apartments and for housing is just so high right now. We need something more affordable for the people in this area.
do you have a number that you consider affordable housing for family? 2 bedrooms maybe.
Okay, well, my home is 4-bedroom. We are a family of 4, plus a dog. Our mortgage is around $700 a month. To me, that's pretty affordable for a 4-bedroom home, 1.5 baths, 1,900 square feet or something like that. To me, I think that's affordable. I think anything over, $600 to $800, that's getting for somebody working, even a minimum wage is going up, and low wage jobs are paying more in the past few months. Who knows how long that's going to last? But right now, somebody making minimum wage usually can't make rent.
So if I could ask a question just to follow up on that for you, could you tell me, if you know, what the average amount a person with a disability gets on a federal benefit?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't know that.
Well,
My
well,
guess would be-
well, we do, and that average amount is $875.
Okay, I was gonna
So-
guess $1,000 a month. so-
Right, so if you had to do all of those things that you just described on $875.
Right.
Are we doing everything that we could be doing to be helping folks find affordable and accessible housing?
As a city or,
Yes,
no, I think we could definitely do more. I think we could definitely encourage those places to come in, be kinder to them when they do come in. Typically when they come in, I mean, council shoots them down all the time. I don't know why. As I said, I live near.
when you're referring to low-income housing proposals, correct? Not like individuals coming in looking for assistance with housing.
Correct,
Right,
yes.
okay, yeah, okay.
A developer coming in to build something, right? They typically are not viewed favorably at council meetings.
Seems like maybe it's an opportunity for some education with the council members
Oh,
to understand
Absolutely.
what low income truly is.
Mhm.
$800 and something a month is not a lot of money.
No, absolutely not.
And that's by the way, that designation is called very low as opposed to low,
Absolutely.
right? So one of the problems that we have in terms of dealing with the funding of those projects is that very low isn't a category that is mandatorily accounted for. Low is, but very low is not. So they use tax credits to build buildings. The tax credits have an income minimum that $875 doesn't meet, and they're not eligible to apply for the units because they don't have enough money.
Gotcha.
As a city leader, do you know what the waiting list for a housing choice voucher in Batavia is?
I don't know for sure.
If I were to tell you that is a 3 to 5 year waiting list.
That's way more than I would have thought.
Yeah, and you guys have a low waiting list. In other areas of Western New York, the waiting lists approach 10 years.
That's
Mhm.
awful. To say the very least,
It is an interesting concept, isn't it?
and it's inexcusable. There's gotta be, I'm not saying I know the answer. I don't have the answer to everything. I'm always willing to learn. And I think the biggest job of a city council member is to represent the city, to represent the residents. And I'm absolutely willing to sit down and talk with any resident, any leader, anyone who wants to call me out for one because you don't know what you don't know. No one does. And hear their concerns. I'm an open book. I'm happy to talk to anyone about my experiences or what experiences are lacking. But absolutely, if I were to win the race on Tuesday, the first thing I would do is set up monthly coffee hours, coffee socials, whatever, to sit down with the residents and discuss anything they want to talk about, and hear what their concerns are and what their needs are. If I were to have guessed before you told me how long that wait list was, I would have said 6 months. I'm sure you wish it was 6 months. But even 6 months is too long when you're looking for housing. It's just too long.
Right. This is part of the education part of it. My job is to feed you information, to give you some thought as you answer their questions in the room.
Sure.
We have reached our 15 minutes. I do want to do a last bite on questions for anybody. And I'm not hearing any, but in the room might have one. And thank you so much for coming in.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
I've got my literature to the people in the room. If anyone wants to reach out to me, my contact information is on there. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to, email, Facebook, whatever, however is the best way for someone to get in contact with me, we'll make that happen. Meet you for a cup of coffee somewhere. I'm happy to do that.
And as I've said, the whole thing is going to go up on our social media and be broadcast on Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service right up for Election Day. So people get an opportunity to hear your remarks. All right. We wish you best of luck in your campaign.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
I just like to add, I hope
Oh,
you don't
gosh.
feel like you had a rapid fire attack.
No, not at
These
all.
are all facts that a lot of people don't know, and thank you
Yes.
for making them important to you and
Absolutely.
something that you understand you need to learn about to represent.
I
your
mean, absolutely.
constituents.
You don't know what you don't know, and you're doing more harm by pretending you know it all than by just admitting, you know what, I never thought of it that way. I don't have the same experiences as the people in the room, and that's life.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We weren't trying to rapid fire.
No, not at
Thank you.
all. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So Scott, our last person is not here yet, whether she's gonna do Zoom, I don't know.
Well, I've been told that she's going to Zoom,
Okay, I wasn't sure.
and she is not in the waiting room yet.
Okay,
I think
Okay.
she's scheduled for 12:30.
Right, and normally when we recommend they try to get in like 5 minutes before so that we're not dealing with our audio. But it is going to be a small break.
Hi, Todd.
Hello. While we wait for those folks and while I'm dealing with small breaks, I'm going to ask the question I've asked at all of our Meet the Candidates days. Has anybody done early voting yet? And if they have, I'd be very curious to hear about their experiences. No one has done early voting yet.
Todd, can we ask who just said hello to you? Is the candidate on the line?
No, the candidate has not been let in from the waiting room,
Okay.
right? And the interpreter wouldn't have waited so long if I'd have known she was the interpreter, but unfortunately it scrolled right off the chat window. I didn't get it right away. Thanks, Joan. I will make an announcement as soon as I see her in the waiting room to give you guys an opportunity to regather.
everything. And you're gonna be right over there, and you can take your mask off while you're talking, and you
All
will
right.
be here. Little blue mark right on the floor there.
We just need there, your little blue mark there, and you'll be at the
I-
camera.
hi.
And we'll wait for Todd to get us going again.
How many people we got on?
Looks like we got 16, but this is gonna be broadcasted to Niagara radio reading,
Oh,
and then also gonna be posted on our social media
okay.
as well. Yeah.
Looks like. Are you the moderator, like?
No, Todd Farwick actually is.
My-
our reader
My
somewhere.
apologies. I was taking a call from our CEO during our break. All right, so is everyone back at the site location, Scott?
Yep, we're all set.
All right. And thank you so much for joining us in person. I sat here waiting for you to pop up in our Zoom waiting room.
No, I just barely made it.
It's so much more important when you come in person.
Yes.
All right. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to ask that you give your general statement here to the camera. Then we're going to take questions from the audience. Then we'll ask for questions from Zoom. And then your time with us will be concluded. Your 15 minutes with us starts now.
Hi, I'm Ann Sapienza from the town of Virgin. I've lived in Virgin for 39 years. I'm currently on the Virgin Town Council, and I am running for another 4-year term. My husband and I had 2 sons we raised there. But what I'm most excited about, if any of you have been here when I've come the last 2 times running for office, I really felt bad that I didn't have a lot to say regarding the disabilities, what's the current legislation. And I didn't feel knowledgeable, but it was important for me to be here to kind of learn something. But June 11th, I fell down my basement stairs in the middle of the night, and I wrecked my left foot. So I was in a wheelchair for 2 months. And I know it's not the same as folks with, lifelong disabilities, but boy, did it open my eyes. And one of them is where I work in the town of Stafford. We have the automatic door openers, and that's great, except somebody has to turn those on every day. And guess what happens? They didn't turn them on. So I would sit in the wheelchair out in front of the building yelling for someone to let me in the building. So I just have to say it gave me just a little glimpse of being disabled for a while, really opened my eyes. So we 2 years ago, we renovated our little public library, the Byron Virgin Public Library in Virgin. And one of the top priorities we made sure was that everything was ADA compliant and easy for the handicap. And I was so proud that we were able to do that. So, and I'm very attentive with it. Many of you do know Ernie Haywood, and he is our supervisor. He also is one that keeps us on our toes about meeting requirements for the disabled. So that's about it. Questions?
Seriously, questions from the audience first?
Yes, my name is Erica. I'm on the independent living of the Genesee Region Council. One thing that I understand from many different first responders in the community, I do a lot of outreach. I talk to a lot of officers, different people. A lot of people in rural communities are shut in. There is a major problem with shut-in. How is that addressable for you?
Well, the other thing is, I don't tell a lot of people this. I've been a property assessor for municipalities for 35 years. So I deal with a lot of senior citizens, and I deal with disabled for the disability exemption and senior citizens exemption. So I go to their homes. And now COVID put a little bit of a damper on this, but I'm back to returning. In fact, I've got an appointment with a disabled person in the town where I work to go to their home to make it easier. Other than that, I'm not sure how other public officials would handle it. Most that I know, because we are a small town rural, we would go visit the home and help in any way we could that way.
There's a large problem also with people not having durable medical equipment that they need, such as shower seats, slide over seats. commodes, things like that for safety, and that's a really huge hazard, especially for a shut-in person. How would you address that?
Well, we have through the American Legion in Virgin, they have a loan program for things like wheelchairs, shower seats. When I fell, I have to admit, my neighbors and my friends came together and I had the electric wheelchair, I had the shower, everything, the walkers. So my neighbors helped me out. But I have not heard, at least in Virgin, of anyone not having what they need to meet their needs for their disability. If I did, I would certainly call the Legion first, and then I'd probably call here.
I was gonna say,
I'd be calling here.
If the Legion does not have an available resource, we also have an extensive loan process
Yeah.
for durable medical equipment. We would like it to be returned.
Oh, yes.
If it is in good shape, but we don't hunt people down and it is available.
Yeah.
It is available. People can live more safely in their home without these.
Yes, yes. I think the problem I find the most is the folks that don't use computers, internet. It's probably been one of the toughest things, especially our elderly who are disabled and they don't use Facebook and Instagram to find out what's going on in their community and that. So I belong to one organization where I'm secretary and I still snail mail everything, information to those folks that are just, not computer literate or using the internet.
What about railing? Some communities are doing it. I've seen some programs railing to get people who are not computer savvy, to get them into a class in the library and in their senior centers, someplace that is a community place they enjoy, and not have it be aggravating to them. Just basic skills so they can.
I believe the Gillen Grant Center in Virgin, right across the street from the school, does offer that for the seniors. They have a great seniors program there too. Of course, I say seniors, I'm assuming that I'm a senior and I struggle too, but they do offer programming. Yeah. So
it does apply to people with disabilities as well. They may be homebound, they may.
Sure.
Yeah, they may need the same outreach. They may need to learn the same skills.
The big thing is for people to let us know. I know, like I'm on the town board, let me know because I will find an answer for you as long as I know that there's a problem. So even if you're disabled and you have family that's helping you or caretakers, call. My phone is in the phone book, cell phone. Call us to let us know. Then I can react. So.
I actually have heard that, I think, from each candidate today. Call me. I wish that there was a way that all of you could make sure your communities know that. Call me. Call my office because we can help. We will find a way. I wish there was maybe some way that could be put out there.
Most of the towns have stopped mailing out newsletters and they're putting them all on the internet. Okay. And right there, we've lost a connection with a certain group of people, which upsets me. Most towns, though, if you call the town clerk, they will snail mail you a copy of the town newsletter. So that is important. Again, it's just reaching out with your phone, letting us know that there's an issue that you need addressed.
Okay. All right, no more questions here, Todd. I don't know if you want to.
Already, being a person in a small town government, right? And you talked about your disability experience. Could you tell me what you'd like to see in your next period as a town officer in terms of making services more accessible to people with disabilities? What do you see that needs to be fixed?
Well, as far as for the town buildings, we're in pretty good shape. But what I guess maybe those of us who don't have a disability, usually, we forget about our disabled friends. We forget to turn that latch on till the doors will open. And we forget that sometimes people are going to need help. So I think it's an awareness of all the public to remember our disabled friends and how can we help. In Virgin, we have no more projects at this point in time. I also working with the historian because we have a beautiful museum, but there's no restroom facilities. And I find that as you get older, you do find that as an important thing. And the actual historian's house, there is no way for a person handicapped person to get in the house easily. We applied for some grants. It's gonna be very expensive to try to get a way for folks who are either in wheelchairs or walkers and that to get into that building. So that's probably the only one right now.
Is that a historic building?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
I know.
And do you know who the ADA 504 coordinator is for the town of Bergen?
We don't have one for the town, the school does.
You know you're supposed to have one for the town, right?
No, I did not know that, and I'm surprised that Ernie Haywood, who
So,
supervised
so
that.
you could conceivably commit to us today that you would help us solve that oversight for the town of Bergen and get somebody designated, right?
Sure. Oh,
Okay.
gosh, yeah. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking that Ernie's gonna be the person because he deals with that constantly.
Right, and I would expect that would probably be true, but even for small cities, towns, and villages, right? You still have to designate an ADA person, and the public needs to know who that person is.
Okay, because I'm thinking the town where I work, we don't have anybody to my knowledge either. So, and you know, I'm also a member of the Genesee Association of Municipalities. We meet once a month. That's something I could bring up, in all the towns and villages in the state of Batavia are there.
Well,
Did you know we were supposed to?
you're a member of what? Repeat that committee for me again.
It's called GAM, Genesee Association of Municipalities. We meet once a month, and on Thursdays, the fourth Thursday of the month. And we all talk about issues, town and village issues. So that would be something that
So I wouldn't be surprised if an advocate called you and said, let's see what we can do to get on their agenda. Because
Oh,
maybe
sure.
we come to a meeting and we talk to them about what their ADA requirements are and kind of rumor bust a lot of that thing about how much it costs and how complicated it is, because it really isn't.
Well, I'm vice chair, so I can assure you, we can get you on the agenda.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, if I have any other questions in Zoom, please raise your hand. I'll give them a second to raise their hands to see if I have to unmute anybody's microphone. If not, I'm done. I've asked all my questions. And I want to thank you for coming all the way over here and spending time with us.
No, thank you. I'm actually thrilled every time you folks invite me. I'm like, yes, I enjoy coming over. And again, I've learned something really great again today that I'll take back to the town board.
Wonderful, wonderful. I don't see any questions, so I'd like to thank you for your appearance.
Can I ask just one-
Right.
can I just make
Oh,
one-
there we go.
I'm sorry, I always put my nap first through. Again, my name's Erica. I just want to say, I forgot to make my bed today. No, I didn't do it, I was lazy, honestly, but I'm gonna say I forgot. But I didn't forget to leave my phone on in case my dad, who's elderly, needs me. And can you guys all try to remember and try not to say I forgot to turn those buttons on so people can get to you. It is so important. And I'm not picking on you. Forgot is a word that it happens to all of us.
Oh, I
We
always
get
turn
rid
my
of it.
phone off and forget I've turned the sound off, so I don't know when someone calls, yeah.
Oh, you know, we all
It's
forget that.
I have a 92-year-old mother and a 92-year-old stepfather, both handicapped, and I try to make sure I listen.
The facilities guy for the town building, right, should be turning those things on when they do their morning maintenance for the day, when they open, right?
It's a good point, but we don't have a facilities guy in any of my towns. I'll be honest with you, we don't. It's up to us that work there to make sure that whoever comes in first in the morning turns them on, whoever leaves.
So
turns them off.
do me a favor, can you send a memo out to everybody to make sure they turn them on and then send us a copy?
Well, I was yelling at them quite a bit when I was trying to get to work, yes.
Even a
Yeah.
checklist for when you enter, when you leave.
Yeah.
But everybody has to just sign their John Hancock.
Okay,
All right,
all right, thank you.
that's all I have for you.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time. And I'm gonna get your information though before I leave here from somebody, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
All
Oh,
right. So I'd like to thank everybody in the room and everybody on Zoom today for our first hybrid Meet the Candidates Day. for independent living in the Genesee region. On behalf of my site guy, Scott, and my co-hosts, Mike and Mark, and myself, I want to thank you all for coming, and I want you to have a great day, and please go out and vote. Voting is the only way we make our voices heard.
Thank you, Todd.